X-Men. Get it!
Guten Tag, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of BotA. This is our weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
Mein Gott, it's Adam.
I'm Zach. I don't know much German, to be honest. I have
Guten Tag.
I got Guten Tag.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Guten Himmel. I know that one.
Sure. Unglaublich.
Jardemark. That's Circus.
We're gonna need our circus jargon here for this episode, right?
We are, because today, folks, we're talking about Nightcrawler. You know him, you love him. He's one of the best X-Men, frankly. Like, of all the X-Men. If someone was going to be ranking all of the X-Men, per se,
I don't know anyone who would do that.
As a lead-in to a great podcast, I would think Nightcrawler would be up there as like maybe number 2, maybe 3. I forget where it ended up, Adam. He's in the tops though, because I love Nightcrawler so much.
Listen, Nightcrawler is fantastic. However, remember when we were talking about Storm the other week, and we were talking about how awesome Storm is. Like, Storm is one of, if not the best X-Men character, right? But then there's so many bad Storm stories. I'm having that feeling again this week, man. Nightcrawler has a ton of terrible stories. Why don't people do good Nightcrawler stories?
No, Adam, I think what you'll find, and this is very interesting, is how we have tied these 3 stories together as not just Nightcrawler, but an additional thread going through Nightcrawler. You'll see is that thread is actually dumb and bad.
Yes.
And that is the uniting common theme between Nightcrawler stories that suck. And that is Nightcrawler stories that are about his secret adoptive mom, Margot Sardosh.
Oh boy.
His secret adopted mom, Margoli Sardosh.
Yes. So we're going to dig deep into the carnival history of Nightcrawler and his winding way mother this week.
Yeah, we are
for better or worse.
We are traveling down that winding way. You know the winding way, right, Adam?
Yes, the winding way, which is referenced often and explained never.
It's the magical path that sorcerers of the winding way take, where they must best each sorcerer who is more powerful than them on the winding way to become the sorcerer supreme of the winding way.
Yeah, it's like Highlander.
It is.
There can be only one.
It is very much Highlander, which is odd because Highlander did come out after the Winding Way, I believe, is first explained. Highlander's not actually that crazy unique of a concept. It just had a killer soundtrack.
Listen, that's the only thing that the story's about, so people remember it. It's dumb.
That's the thing about Highlander, and this isn't a Highlander podcast. I don't think if Highlander came out at any other point in time, it would ever be remembered. But Highlander did come out at the perfect time for a movie like Highlander to become a phenomenon.
Yes, absolutely. Those coke-fueled 80s where just about any action property had a chance.
It's so weird that I know it's the most common thing. It is weird that Highlander was the one that became a franchise.
You think there's someone somewhere pining for a Highlander reboot?
Yes.
Really excited.
Yes, I do. I don't think Highlander the series or the multiple Highlander sequels where they were like aliens. I didn't watch the Highlander sequels.
I don't know. I think I got up to the second one and I called it quits.
There's a lot of Highlander content out. Who owns the Highlander license for comics? Get Marco Rudy to draw a Highlander comic. It would rule.
Marvel loses Conan, but gains Highlander.
Listen, hold on. Tell me you wouldn't read Savage Avengers, but instead of Conan, it's the Kurgan from Highlander? Because I would read that.
Could be great. I
think Connor McLeod would do a great job.
Would love that. Swinging a sword around, why not? So we do have some swashbuckling of sorts this week. Who requested this?
This was requested by the mysterious Reagan, who is nothing like her namesake. Reagan may be a sorceress on the Winding Way. There's really no way of knowing. But quite a mystic name. And if you want to be like Reagan, you can go over to patreon.com/comicsxf. Say, folks, love that comic book content that you are putting out week in and week out. And then you can subscribe and give us $5, and then we'll do an episode. We do an episode about the Winding Way for you.
That sounds great.
We're
Where
not
are we
gonna
starting?
We're not going to start with Reagan's pick. We're going to end with it because I don't think we always have to go chronologically, but I do like it when we have themes and stories that are like sequential.
Yeah.
Only they're sequential over a bunch of different writers who did not plan for these things to be sequential and they just happened, which is the beauty, I think, of comics. There's no other medium that lets you choose your own continuity like comics.
It's true. We're going to see a lot of that this episode.
We're just going to play fast and loose with the previously established rules based on what you fuzzily remembered of them as you wrote things down.
Oh, 100%. I got kind of excited about... the first thing we're going to talk about today is the Soul Sword trilogy, which is Excalibur Volume 1, 83 to 85. And, I look at the cover of this first issue, Bill Sienkiewicz. It's Kitty Pryde pulling the soul sword out of her. Then I flip to the first page. It's also Bill Sienkiewicz, illustration of the soul sword with some skulls. And then I realize, no, these issues are not drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz. And they're written by Warren Ellis in his beginning of his Excalibur run. And I immediately went, no!
It's Warren Ellis Excalibur, based on an idea by Scott Lobdell.
Oh, now, that's the best credit. I was like, what?
It was Scott Lobdell saying, "Hey, I'm too busy to do this story. Warren, I know you're taking over this book. Do you just want to pick up this one for me? Here, it's already like been approved. Can you just do this one, Warren?"
Oh boy.
It's weird.
We do have Terry Dodson here on the first issue.
We get Terry Dodson on the first issue. You get Derek Gross on the second, and you get Ken Lashley on the third. And I like Dodson, and I like Lashley. And Lashley ends up being a solid hand on Excalibur in this era.
I agree. 100%. The story? Not so great.
Story's bad. People forget Scott Lobdell's tenure on Excalibur, which is good for people, because Scott Lobdell's tenure on Excalibur is really bad, actually.
Well, he kind of forgets what the whole point of the book is, and just makes it into an X-Men book, and it's not good.
It's Scott Lobdell doing the worst possible version of his X-Men book. He quit this to start Gen X, didn't he? He literally had this plan, and then was like, oh, they greenlit Gen X, let's go.
The difference in quality is staggering, right?
Well, because he cares about one of them.
Yeah, classic mismatch. Like, we do not need full arcs about the origin of Zero in relation to Douglock, and but we're in that period where Moira is like obsessed with curing the legacy virus, and it's not going so hot, so we're just hanging out on Muir Island with Excalibur and doing nothing.
No, we are. This is 94 Excalibur, so the team is Shadowcat, Nightcrawler, Megan, Britannic. You remember Britannic, right?
Everyone's favorite Captain Britain pseudonym.
Douglock is also here, as is Dr. Moira McTaggart. Dr. Rory Campbell, the once and future Ahab, is hanging around. And Amanda Sefton is kinda on the team, in so much as Amanda Sefton's ever actually in the story, which is when people remember she exists.
Yes, she's going by Day Tripper in this period, which
is very funny.
That's a great name.
That's a great name for your sister girlfriend, Nightcrawler.
Which is going to come up quite a bit in this episode.
People, it's so important that we do emphasize Nightcrawler and Day Tripper, Kurt Wagner and Amanda Sefton, are not biological siblings.
No.
They are adopted siblings who were raised together and are in love.
Weird. Still weird.
Listen. For certain values of incest, This is absolutely incest. For other values of incest, it is not incest. Your mileage may vary on how weird you find this relationship. I love that this has just been a thing for so long and nobody has said no about it, that everyone's just like, Nightcrawler dates his sister sometimes, and we have all accepted and we're cool with it.
Right. So this is not technically a Nightcrawler-centric story, but it involves them and Amanda Sefton and Margoli Zaros, because it turns out we've got a little bit of a retcon here. It turns out that little dying of the legacy virus Ileana somehow slipped the soul sword into Kitty Pryde.
Well, no. You're misremembering continuity right now. I want to clear this up, Adam. After Ileana dies in the very sad issue.
Yes.
And actually, I think technically it's after Inferno Ileana dies. Is when this happens. The soul sword is planted in a rock outside of the Excalibur lighthouse.
Oh, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just there. Dr. Doom tries to get it at one point at the start of Scott Lobdell's tenure on the book. And it ends up inside of Shadowcat, who had possessed the soul sword in the 80s for brief moments when Ileana was otherwise disposed.
I am not incorrect, though, that this set of issues does suggest that the energy transfer happens on Ileana's deathbed, though. There is this X-ray sequence that Professor X is mulling over, and it seems to suggest that they forgot about that thing you just said with the rock, and just like... Yes?
The thing about this is that the Soul Sword trilogy makes up everything about the Soul Sword. It says, here's some new continuity about the Soul Sword. And there's a thing about retcons. Let's take Moira, for example. The Moira X retcon is additive. It doesn't destroy anything, and what it does destroy, you don't care about. Let's be clear. A one-off comment from Moira that doesn't really jive in a late 90s issue of Excalibur, it's not important. That's continuity that you don't care about. So the retcon ends up being more or less additive. This retcon says that actually the Soul Sword is the symbol of the ruler of Limbo and has been for centuries and generations, and wars and armies have died and battles have been fought for this thing, and all these hell lords are after it. So that's why they must get the Soul Sword that was Ileana's. And here's the thing. The most important Ileana Rasputin story is the Storm and Ileana Magic miniseries.
Yep.
The central, pivotal moment of that miniseries is Ileana creating the Soul Sword out of all of her rage and anger, such that even when she is trying to use her magic to be creative and to be fruitful, she creates a weapon of death and destruction. That is the pivotal, defining moment that the Soul Sword is literally her soul as a sword and the embodiment of it.
Yeah, they didn't read that.
Wild that you would do a story about the Soul Sword and completely just be like, well, what if that didn't happen? And it's never explained how that works with the Magic miniseries, because Scott Lobdell and especially Warren Ellis don't actually care about continuity that much. And here's the thing about continuity. Continuity is as important as the readers make it. And by that I mean that you can change something from a random one-off issue of Excalibur and no one's going to care. But if you change the pivotal moments of a story for a character, it matters. That's why the Jean Grey Phoenix retcon has to have like a Bale caveat in there that says, but also the Phoenix Force was definitely Jean and her sacrifice on the moon meant something, because otherwise it gets rid of the most important story in X-Men history.
Right. Well, this is not paying attention to canon at all. In fact, it kind of just suggests that if you have the Soul Sword inside of you, it just makes you want to dress up in nightclub clothes and be nasty to people. And it also suggests that there's people trying to get it other than Margoli, including Grave Moss, the necromancer who possesses Nightcrawler's body for most of this arc. We
and
also have
the
a
witch Shrill, who has a soul
Yes,
sword
Shrill.
eye.
This is the stupidest thing ever. Her eye is made of the same metal, so whenever the soul sword is pulled out, she like turns old and shriveled up, and what? That's so dumb.
What's dumb is that she also has a brooch made of the same metal, but she's like, oh, but it's not enough of that metal for it to be a big deal, because the brooch and the eye are the same. No, it's just, but if there's any more of that metal, it's out there. It's so
Oh my
weird.
God. It's so dumb.
It implies that Ileana became evil because she possessed the soul sword, which, no, guys, Ileana was kind of evil because of the years and years and years of living in hell she did.
Yeah. Yep. Missing pieces of her actual soul.
Yeah, it was the intense trauma that she experienced.
Oh my God. So yeah, we've got rival villains, right? We've got possessed Nightcrawler trying to kill Douglock. We've got Kitty, Soul Sword Kitty, trying to like hurt and kill people, and it's up to the rest of the members of Excalibur to stop them. It really just comes down to Day Tripper showing up, right? I mean, that's pretty much it. But we also get this very weird aside in the third issue where Wolverine, in a flashback, teaches Kitty how to do Krav Maga instead of like remembering that Kitty is a trained assassin. Like, it completely forgets that Kitty is like a very talented martial artist in her own right.
It's very weird because he's like, yeah, Kitty, this was developed by your people, the Israelis. And Kitty is from Chicago. She's from Deerfield. Like, she is Jewish. She is not Israeli.
It's a very strange thing. This arc also ends with a final page that has like a ton of exposition on it that suggests that I guess by stealing the sword, she accidentally gave it to her mother, I guess, and was tricked, but that doesn't make any sense. It's like there's a whole nother issues worth of writing here that they just decided not to do.
Absolutely feels like there's an entire other issue that Warren Ellis just didn't write, where Day Tripper gets the soul sword from Nightcrawler at the end and hands it off to Margoli Solardos, but oops, Margoli's actually evil and wants to use the soul sword to kill everybody in front of her on the Winding Way, and become Sorcerer Supreme of the Winding Way. It's such a weird way to end the story, and it only comes up 2 other times, like, as a follow-up, once slightly in the London Burning Hellfire Club Onslaught tie-ins to Excalibur, which kind of more or less wrap up Ellis's run.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in like a one-off issue of X-Men Unlimited, where it's like, actually, Belasco got the Soul Sword now, and we have to stop him. Which becomes a weird thing, because that's when Amanda Sefton keeps the Soul Sword and starts to be the second Magic in Running Limbo, which has its own miniseries. Like,
that is
several
weird.
years after that.
Yeah, well, we're gonna run into her in a second, that version of Amanda, in just a moment. But it is weird how like this idea of like where this plot is supposed to go is supposed to be so big and important. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem to have any ties to what came before it or after it, and doesn't seem like anybody ever cared about it again.
You know, I would almost say that, except for they keep coming back to like the fruits of it. It's like, well, how did Amanda become magic? Well, she got it because of this. So how does that tie into Nightcrawler? And it all, literally, it all ties into when magic finally comes back in Ex Infernus, where she pulls the soul sword from Nightcrawler, who's like, oh, shoot, I have been holding that for a decade and a half. Oh, dang, 15 years of this. I forgot. That's where that thing was? Oh, dang it.
Oh, it's like losing your car keys. Where's my soul sword?
You know, if the soul sword was so evil, you think Nightcrawler would have come up at one point. I don't know.
Right? Yeah. would have corrupted him, I guess, at some
This
point.
is a dumb story, and it's bad.
Very dumb. I think we got to rank it.
We do. Hey, here's the thing, Adam. We rank stories on our big ol' list. We have
Our own winding way.
We do. We are on the winding way to 700.
Wow.
With 645 stories already ranked of all the X-Men stories of all time from best to worst, with the number 1 story being The House of X and the Powers of 10, the number 100th story being Uncanny X-Men 314 Early Frost. Number 200 on our list is New Mutants Annual number 1, Steal This Planet! Number 300 on our list is Germ-Free Generation from New X-Men. Number 400 on our list is the first arc of Mutant X. Number 500 on our list is Exiled, the crossover with Journey into Mystery and the DNA New Mutants. Number 600 on our list is X-Men Secret Invasion, a bad comic. And the Draco's at the bottom.
This really gives me kind of Shatterstar Saga vibes. I don't know if we're that low. That's at 609.
We're not that low.
It's not quite as incomprehensible as that, but like we're probably in the 500s here.
We're probably definitely in the 500s. I'm looking at it. Like, how do you feel about this compared to Wisdom Max at 554?
You know I hate Wisdom Max, Zach.
But
Wisdom Max is still better than this.
Better, yeah. Because like Pride and Wisdom is at 540. That's better than this.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree. I think yeah, we're looking at Knights of Terra, which is pretty darn bad, is probably like on par with this. I think we're in the same kind of...
I think Knights of Terra is probably better. How do you feel about it compared to the Morlocks Take Manhattan? Uncanny X-Men 291 to 293.
Similar, like, that's Lobdell, isn't it? Just kind of losing the thread, and it's just real messy. So I think that's probably a little better, though. How about Life Signs, Phalanx Covenant? That's Excalibur, isn't it?
It is. Life Signs is also bad.
Yeah.
Life Signs
is pretty bad.
Life Signs is just messy, but I think I like Life Signs better.
Okay.
I also think
Excalibur.
I like Wolverine 98 to 100 Furnace of His Mind, Anvil of His Heart better.
Well, that has some cool art in it, if I remember correctly. That even if it's just like a complete mess, right?
You know what? I think this is probably better than X Factor: The Quick and the Dead, which is at 584.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
It's not better than X-Men 5 through 7, The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Okay. So is this our new 583?
I don't know. How do you feel about it compared to that Savage Land Wolverine story where he fights Sauron, this pterosaur man?
I don't know. Like, that's messy, but it's probably more fun. It has Sauron in it.
Yeah, let's put it right below that, but right above X Factor: The Quick and the Dead.
Okay. So that's going to make it our new 584. I guess for those curious, those Soul Sword curious people, like, go check this out, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's terrible.
If you're soul curious, you should check it out, I guess. But we have more terrifying tales of the Winding Way to talk about, including Nightcrawler Volume 3, 7 through 12, The Winding Way. This is from the 2005 Nightcrawler series by Roberto Aguirre Acosta, with pencils by Derek Robertson. In this series, it opens up and Kurt has kind of become a paranormal detective, which is an interesting twist, but it also falls into what I think is a terrible trap that anyone who writes Nightcrawler thinks they want to get into, but is actually folly, and that is writing about Nightcrawler and religion, which doesn't ever end well.
Here's what I want to say. We're covering here issues 7 to 12 of this series, and there's a basic problem with this, and it has nothing to do with the story itself. I don't know if this bothered you, but as I'm reading each page of this book, the writer does not complete people's sentences. Did you notice that? every single sentence that this person writes for dialogue ends in an ellipses or dashes, and then another character interrupts them, and then their sentence doesn't complete, and then another character interrupts them. They are full stretches of pages here where no one completes a sentence and everyone is speaking in sentence fragments. And in the first issue, I was like, oh, because in the first issue, he's kind of like tripping, you know what I mean? He's like having visions and
Right.
he's not in control. And I'm like, okay, well, that kind of fits the style of what's happening here in this first issue. But then it keeps happening for all the rest of the issues when there is no such spiritual journey of, hallucinations. And let me tell you, it is one of the most frustrating reading experiences I have had in a long time.
I had absolutely no problem with it. I didn't even notice.
What?
Didn't even cross my mind. I was like, okay, it's just people like ellipses sometimes, my man. It's like they're trailing off.
Okay. I mean, it's not even the first page.
No, I
Let
get
me count
it.
how many ellipses are on the first page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 ellipses on the first page of this story and 2 sets of double dashes. That's one page, Zach.
No,
that's unacceptable.
Listen,
you
when you lay it
cannot
out
write like
that.
this.
Well, here's the thing about Roberto Argures Acosta. He's more successful than pretty much anyone who writes comics. You know what his credits are, Adam?
Archie, right?
He does Archie now. He is the chief
great.
creative officer for Archie. He was also
Great.
a writer on Glee,
Okay.
Supergirl,
Uh-huh.
and he was a showrunner on Riverdale.
You know what, Roberto? I am really happy for your successes. I do hope, having not watched any of those shows or read any Archie comics, that you have learned to complete your sentences.
I don't know. I've heard some things.
God bless this person. It drove me absolutely insane, and I don't know how it didn't bother you. It's just so insane to me. Like, you cannot write without completing sentences. All right, let's talk about what this is about.
So, Nightcrawler is struggling with like some visions and some stuff that had bothered him from his last adventure with his girlfriend Christine Palmer. Do you know Christine Palmer?
She's kind of like Nurse Annie. She sucks.
Adam,
Yes.
that is Christine Palmer, the night nurse you were talking about. Please hold your tongue.
Well, she could be cool elsewhere. She's not cool here. She sucks here. She just stands around and kind
I'm
of like.
so
just
mad at
stands
you right
there.
now. Night nurse rules.
She rules in this series, Zach. She rules in 7 to 12 of Nightcrawler Volume 3 because she doesn't. She doesn't do anything. She just stands there.
Listen, hey.
You know who else is not cool in this? Is Wolverine. Is Wolverine a cool character? Is Wolverine amazing? He sure is. Is he amazing in 7 to 12 of Nightcrawler Volume 3? No, he is not. He is dumb and stupid. And if this was the only Wolverine story you'd ever read, you'd never want to read another Wolverine story because this is very bad.
I will say that Christine Palmer is not the best night nurse. The best night nurse is Linda Carter.
See? It's not even the best night nurse. You're getting all upset about
She's
it.
the original night nurse. Linda
Who
Carter.
cares? She could be anybody. She's a cardboard cutout.
Linda Carter is the 1961 student nurse. Christine Palmer is from the 70s comic night nurse. Which is what's weird is that Christine Palmer is also Doctor Strange's love interest in the Doctor Strange cinematic universe that apparently exists. I haven't watched the newest Doctor Strange movie. I'll see it when it comes out.
You're not missing much. It's all right.
It feels like just everything I know about it, a movie designed to make me upset, personally.
You will be. If you were upset by No Way Home, as I was not, you will be very
No
upset
Way Home, a
about
movie that I do
Multiverse
hate.
of Madness.
My wife is like, oh, I haven't seen the new Spider-Man, and we have it on like streaming. I'm like, I'll watch it again with you, but like, I need you to know I'm gonna be mad. Like, I don't care for it. I also don't like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies all that much. I think they're overrated. And I was 11 when the first one came out, so
Wow, that's a hot take.
Listen,
Dang.
I was 11 when the first one came out. I get that it was a big part of your childhood. I remember being very excited to watch Spider-Man 2 right after I came back from my mission trip to Mexico when I was 13. Let's not get into that right now. It turns out the country of Mexico, they're aware of Jesus already. I didn't have to. I was not necessary to deliver that message. Folks,
This episode
I've-
is going off the rails.
I have learned very quickly. Me at 13, I was not the vessel that was needed. Much like Nightcrawler was not necessarily the vessel needed to tell this story, where we get deep into the history of Nightcrawler's brother, Steven Sardos.
Yeah, I didn't know. I never knew that Nightcrawler had a brother.
You didn't know? Hold on.
I didn't know Amanda was named Jermaine either.
Well, then you just haven't reread Claremont Comics recently, because it defo comes up in X-Men Annual Volume 1, Number 4, which we didn't cover for this episode, but was on the list before we removed it for the Soul Sword stuff.
Look, I know I've read that, but did I remember this part? No.
No, so in that comic, you learn that Nightcrawler, the mob in Giant Size was after Nightcrawler because he had just killed his brother.
Right, and
also there were a lot of dead children around that they also thought Nightcrawler had killed. But
completely understandable. Which I still
they do make them
like.
They make the angry mob from Giant Size X-Men number 1. They make them make way more sense. Like, they justify their actions a lot right now. Yes, they're still an angry mob, and yes, they're a little bigoted. Also, they saw a demon man kill a brother and a bunch of children. So I understand the overreaction from the angry mob's standpoint. Like, I do not agree with their actions, but I get it.
Sure. Well, we're also getting some history between how Amanda and Nightcrawler fell in love after he rescues her from sudden death in a trapeze accident. We also get the origin of his costume, which is Amanda's trapeze costume, which is kind of interesting.
It's his circus outfit, which is great. Is he wearing that in Giant Size at the start? Is he wearing his circus outfit?
He is, yes.
Yeah, so it's always been his circus outfit, but it is fun to see.
We also learned that Nightcrawler, I guess, had a sabbatical and went to Florida for a while. I don't get that. Where does that happen on the timeline?
Before he kills his brother, but after he's been the amazing Nightcrawler in the circus.
So this is like a Jesus Comes to America type thing, right?
He does a weird thing, and then he gets locked in a cage by an evil circus man. None of this is important. What you need to know is that there is a demon named, what is he? Hive? Carrion? It's Hive.
No. Well, keep in mind, this arc has Vermin, Carrion, and the Hive in it. So, and Nightmare. There's a lot of random villainy happening.
I like how Nightmare's around, and they're like, Nightmare, aren't you normally evil? He's like, listen, man, I am the personification of the ideas of nightmares. My morality is not on the same plane as yours. This is screwing up Nightmare stuff, so I'm helping out here, okay? Can you let me do my thing? Which I think is the best. I don't necessarily think Nightmare is a good villain. I do love it when the cosmic entities show up and they're like, look, I got a whole different set of priorities than you. Can you let me do this thing?
Sure.
Like, that's fun. That's using the Marvel Universe in a fun way. As opposed to this where, Carrion is here, who, I guess, a character from late 90s Spider-Man, who knows?
Wasn't Vermin the guy from Craven Hunt?
Vermin is the guy, Vermin's from Craven's Last Hunt. Craven kills him, it doesn't stick.
Yeah, it's a weird combo here.
Man-Thing is in this.
A
bunch of monsters attack, and then you find out, blah, blah, blah. Nightcrawler has to deal with the fact that his brother actually wasn't evil. He was possessed by a demon.
Yes, the Hive, who makes himself known by just, having some flies buzz around your head. And eventually, Nightcrawler gets the fly to talk. It's like a 3-headed fly, and he talks to the fly for a while. But then he lets the fly go after all that. Instead of squishing the fly. The Soul Sword is back, but then they give it to... Oh, wait, they pull it out of Nightcrawler. And
Nightcrawler uses it to stop some demon curses.
Yeah, that's
He remembers that the Soul Sword is a thing. It is useful. But he keeps it at the end. And it's just... It's a story where Kurt is being very contemplative and moody about his life. but he's not really doing much soul searching. Like, I don't know what his mission is besides I feel a need to solve this mystery.
I think what drives me nuts about this is that, like, we're only 2 volumes removed from the Dave Cockrum Nightcrawler solo, which is just, like, so unabashedly fun. And this
2
is
volumes
trying...
in 20 years, though. It's
I
20
understand.
years of comics.
I understand. But, like, there is something that I never understood about the brooding Nightcrawler. Like, it just seems to fly in the face of what this character is all about, which is swashbuckling romance.
Okay, can I tell you what it is, Adam? Because you're forgetting something so critically important.
Yeah, okay. What am I forgetting?
X2 X-Men United.
Uh...
where Nightcrawler was a broody guy, and he... Remember how he carved tattoos into his body and scarred himself for every sin? And they were actually not just regular tattoos. They were the language of angels.
So stupid. Wow.
It's been so long since I've watched
bad?
it. No, X2... It's been a very long time since I've watched it. X2 rules. X2
I mean, it has that whole
so
sequence where he invades the White House. That's pretty rad. It's just not the Nightcrawler we know and love.
X2... makes Nightcrawler very cool. It is not the Nightcrawler I want. Unfortunately, They gave us the Nightcrawler I want in X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, which are bad movies.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to argue about that. And this is just a bad story, you know? Like, Mephisto shows up at some point, and it's just a rotating... Like, it's not a Nightcrawler story as much as things are happening around Nightcrawler. And nobody completes their sentences, and it drives me nuts.
It's about, like, actually, Kurt, you've been connected to the demon world this whole time. And they are playing off of the Draco.
A little bit, yeah.
Stuff from the Draco, and in a very funny way, absolutely never bringing up Azazel.
They bring up Mystique. You know, they bring up Zaros, but they do not bring up Azazel, which I appreciate.
It's like, okay, if we're going to have Nightcrawler be a demon and, like, the spawn of Satan, what can we do with it? And they're trying to play with that, but also they know that storyline's bad and sucks, and they're not referencing it directly, which is such a wild kind of, like, tightrope to walk that I can't help but kind of appreciate that. I wish the story was better or good at all.
It's not. And I think I even liked the Excalibur story better than this. This one drove me absolutely insane.
Hold on. I think there is a level of craft and consistency to this that is better. Like, Derek Robertson, for one, much better artist than everyone else is showing in Excalibur. I think Terry Dodson tends to be better, in my opinion, in general. But I think comparing this Nightcrawler stuff to the Excalibur, I think Derek Robertson does a better job. I also think Segura Sakasta is trying some things. Like, the first issue is trying to be, like, a very trippy, like, we want to keep you off guard. The last issue ends on a bum note. Like, it ends on a downer for Nightcrawler. We're saying, hey, dude, your life doesn't just end because the story is ending. Like, you still have to live with the actions of what you did. And it doesn't matter, really, that a demon made your brother do all those things. You still did have to kill your brother. And that sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I think there are admirable traits to this story.
Well, why don't you start the bidding here and let me know where you'd like to go? Because I know that I would probably go lower. But I want to see how high you want to go here.
Well, now I have to look.
Let's see. Where's this gonna go?
Yeah. What I am learning is that I super have to update this list because the one on the website is missing a few weeks of stories.
Oh well, you know that no one's gonna get up in arms about that as long as it gets updated eventually.
Someday.
You know.
Someday.
Yeah.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
This is better than 550 Onslaught, X-Force, X-Man.
All right, so that's going to be our starting point. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not better than Heroes for Hope at 542.
I can give you a ceiling of Iceman Volume 1.
Yeah,
at
it's definitely not
548.
better than that. I enjoy the X-Force and Cable Annual 97 more than this.
I mean, like, can you see where someone would say this is better than Sabretooth and Mystique?
Yes. I can see what's being tried here. This story annoyed me. And not just from a writing can't complete sentences perspective. I just don't think that this take on Nightcrawler is enjoyable in any way, shape, or form.
It is.
You know?
This is too long.
It drives me nuts when Nightcrawler stories, like, it's just like Havoc in Egypt. Like, stop going back to the circus with Nightcrawler. It's not fun. The cast of characters are annoying. And and this doesn't even use them properly. It's just like a rotating cast of villains who don't have a chance to even do anything. And it's like, if it was just a story about him and his brother and like this relationship, that's not what it is. You know, it's not good.
It's him trying to investigate circus crimes, which is weird.
That would be cooler. That's not really what this
That's what
is.
he's doing. He is going
Sort
to
of.
several circuses, investigating crimes that happened at those circuses, and it turns out demons were behind the circus crimes.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Side note, circus crimes is the name of this episode.
Ooh, I like that. That's
I
got
like
a good
it too.
sound to it. All right, so where's this going? Did we decide?
Do you like it better or worse than the Ms. Marvel stuff that Claremont never really got to do?
I like that Ms. Marvel stuff better.
I'll put it between that and Quest Probe. This is probably
Perfect.
Quest Probe.
All right.
I do love Quest Probe, though. I think
You
I
really
love the
have a fondness.
idea. I like the idea of Quest Probe that it was the unreleased video game tie-in comic for a game that never came out that was an educational game.
Gotta love it.
That's set on Magneto's Octopus Island with the Cthulhu's that he has.
I mean, you sold me. I'm sold. Speaking of weird, was that a surprise? I don't know. This feels like a surprise.
Was
I'm not
it
sure
because they solicited this? It was well promoted at the time, I remember.
That's not what's surprising about it. What's surprising is that this is a comic book from 2014 written by Chris Claremont, and I think it's pretty good. It's the best one of the bunch this week.
Yeah, this is Nightcrawler Volume 4, 1 through 4. It's from the all-new Marvel Now era. Now, Adam, do you remember in the halcyon days of spring 2014, what Marvel had launched as part of the all-new Marvel Now era, specifically around X-Men?
Well, we got Amazing X-Men out of that, correct? Didn't we?
So we got out of that all new X-Men, starting with the Trilogy in Gray. So it had already gone, but they kicked off, hey, here's a big X-Men event, crossing over Guardians. Yeah. All new X-Factor.
Yeah.
X-Force Volume 4. Technically a new arc of Savage Wolverine, but it doesn't matter. A relaunch of Wolverine, where he gets the bad Chris Anka costume.
Yeah.
Listen, Chris, we love you.
It's
That's
okay.
a bad costume.
You get a pass.
The G. Willow Wilson X-Men. Then, from a solo series standpoint, it launches Magneto. It launches Dupe. It launches Nightcrawler. It launches Storm. It launches Cyclops. And it also launches Wolverine and the X-Men, and Amazing X-Men was like right before this. So there are so many brand new X-Men books in
that's a stacked
era.
lineup. Yeah. They hit or miss, but
that's the thing. The last time they really tried to do like solos for a lot of X-Men books was right around here. And their problem was that they launched a Wolverine, a Magneto, a Cyclops, a Storm, a Dupe, and a Nightcrawler book all at the same time.
Yes, and very few of them survived.
All to my great shame, do you know which one I didn't pick up a single issue of when it was coming out?
Gonna say Magneto.
It was Magneto. The best one of these.
That's the best one.
Easily the best one of all of these. But I was excited about the Claremont Nightcrawler. And you know what? It's not the worst thing Chris Claremont has done. Like, this is just like a kind of mediocre Claremont comic, but it's got some pluses. My favorite thing about these 4 issues, especially the first 3, actually all 4, let's go. The covers, especially the first 2 covers. First one by Chris Samnee, and then the rest by Jamie McKelvey.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Great.
The cover for number 2 where it's the word Banff and Nightcrawler jumping through it, but his body is in negative space. I love
cool.
it. It's one of my favorite covers out there.
Yeah.
These are great.
Yeah, and we have Todd Knock doing the art in here, which fits the story pretty well. Todd has a nice cartoony sensibility, and I think it matches the tone of the book, which does, as Claremont should be able to do. He should be able to make Nightcrawler into this fun, swashbuckly guy, and I think he does a good job of it.
This is the ever-present problem with anytime Chris Claremont comes back. He knows the character voices. He truly has never lost sight of that. Like, for better or worse, his Kitty Pryde is always Kitty Pryde. Sometimes she's the incredibly insufferable version from the 80s that he used to write. But it's still Kitty. Like, it's recognizably her. This is very much Nightcrawler. It's also very much Nightcrawler and Claremont. It's Claremont doing a weird thing where he's having Nightcrawler come back from the dead and reckoning with the fact that X-Men has changed so much in that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's in Claremont, like, this is the first time he's written an ongoing X-Men thing since...
That's a good question.
I don't know.
When was the last time?
Like 2010-ish, maybe. So it'd been a while because he was doing like Forever in the End, and he had a spin-off of The End, and it was around that time, I feel.
Yeah, and all that stuff is really kind of like messy alternate universe stuff. And this, what I like about this, and we've noted before, and I know you have in your sparring conversations with him, is that he technically doesn't love getting involved and wrapped up with current continuity. But here, I think he handles it really well. He understands what Wolverine is going through in this time period. He understands what Nightcrawler has gone through. He understands what the status is at the Jean Grey school. What's going on even with there's like allusions to Cyclops and the Bendis era here that I'm like, okay, Claremont is on the ball here. He is paying attention to what's happening, and it's slight. It's not like that's the point of the story, because it's not, but it works. It fits within the continuity. Whereas a lot of times I feel like what he does, and I'm very interested to see what this Gambit thing is that he's got cooking, because I think it's going to be what I'm going to say next, is it typically likes to stand apart from what it is that's going on, and he's doing his own thing. This doesn't feel like that.
I like it so much more when I get to see Claremont do a take on whatever is happening. Like, the fact that he's in this and he's like, okay, well, I guess this is the Jean Grey school now, and there's a schism, and I'm just like, these are the cards that I have been dealt. Let's see what we can do. Like, you get really cool moments where I love in the first issue where Kurt and Rachel get a minute to sit and breathe and like talk to one another and be like, this is weird, but we have a good relationship, and I'm back with my friends, and I like that. You get Claremont dealing with the plot points from Jason Aaron's Amazing X-Men in this about Kurt losing his soul. Like, Claremont didn't really have to do that, but I feel like it makes for a more interesting story when he is constrained to, you still have to make this fit.
Right. And when he's willing to do it as well. So we do have Kurt reuniting with Amanda Sefton and rekindling their romance. But of course, we are also getting the return of Margoli Sardos here. Now, this also leans heavy into something that Claremont loves to do in his later work, which is just introduce random characters. And or play with, minor bit characters. So we not only get, some of Nightcrawler's former circus friends back for some of this.
For Hans and Gummy?
Yes. But we are also introduced to the villain of this arc, which is another sort of just made up out of the blue Claremont character called the Tri-Mega.
So I want to be clear. For Hans and Gummy, While they do absolutely 100% seem like weird late Claremont characters that he just threw in there, are definitely from Excalibur -1 by Ben Robb, which I think is such a fun pull.
Yeah, it's great. And I think Führer was also in that last series.
He's in the Nightcrawler. Yeah, he was in the Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa Nightcrawler.
Yep. So Trimega is originally a robot who tries to kill them, and then turns out to be 3 robots, and then turns out to be...
I do like the part where they're like, listen, he said his name was Trimega. I don't know why we didn't expect him to be 3 robots in one body. I think that is actually a really funny bit. I think it's less funny when it becomes not Tri. It becomes Omega.
Yeah, it's a sort of an army of Trimegas, and it turns out they're all working in service of Zardos. What do they want?
Margoli wants to something the Winding Way. I'm not clear on her motivation here.
It does seem a little unclear.
Something demon portals?
Yeah.
She does in what I think is a really cool... I don't know how much of this was Claremont and how much of this was Nock's interpretation.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to bring this up.
There's a really cool part where she has to make sure that Storm and Beast are indisposed and turns them into little sheets of paper. And what it is each one of their memories is spread out as a comics page.
Yes.
And it looks really cool. Like, that's a cool effect.
It's interesting. I was talking about this on Twitter earlier this week, that I get confused when past artwork from past X-Men issues ends up as like decor. Like in that Rachel Kurt scene that you were talking about, the cover of Classic X-Men #1 is on the wall, and I'm like, wait, did they pose for that? This is weird. I realize that this happens over and over in comics, and whatever.
It's just a goof for us.
Yeah, but I agree. Like this point where she wraps them both in paper and kind of turns them into a pile of comic book pages is kind of cool. So they do eventually defeat the army of Trimegas, but they lose Day Tripper. They lose Amanda Sefton.
Yeah, Amanda Sefton has to go through a portal to try and stop Margoli because she's gone to some demon world or something. And Kurt jumps in after her, because that's what Kurt Wagner does. Mm-hmm. But he can't go through it because he doesn't have a soul.
Right. Yeah.
Listen, what the rules are if you have a soul or not are never explained, and don't. It's fine, okay, guys?
Doesn't make a difference. It doesn't matter at this point.
He's got his soul or soul equivalent back now.
Yes. So we do end on a bit of a downer because Nightcrawler has been separated from Day Tripper there.
He just gets back. He has just come back, and his sister girlfriend is gone for ever. She's still kind of gone. Like, she's not back.
No. So I still thought this was a fun time. Trimega is dumb. Let's be clear about that. But, seeing Claremont grab onto this character of his and really nail the voice and nail the relationship between him and Amanda, I enjoyed this quite a bit. More than I thought I would, because I remember reading this at the time and being, this is okay. But maybe it was just reading it after the other two.
Yeah, I mean, it gets Nightcrawler. Claremont understands the character. That shouldn't shock anybody. The plot is serviceable enough. There's some nonsense. They're like, Margoli Sardos, she's incredibly evil and the most evil person. We're like, I don't know, guys. Like, who can say what happened in that one X-Men Unlimited issue? Because I sure don't remember reading it. I know I have, but like, I ain't finding that one, Chris. I don't know if you actually read it. To be fair, I think sometimes Chris Claremont, I do think sometimes you think that all witches are evil and just the most evil person, because you kind of do that frequently.
Oh man, with
Madeline, with Margoli, with Magic, who he still thinks, oh yeah, she's super evil. We should not trust her. And instead, she's just a mean jock now, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, so That's okay. I did enjoy this quite a bit, so I think it's going to rank higher than the other two. Now, I just glanced at this and I highlighted 390, which is Saga of Crystar number 6, the issue where Nightcrawler teleports into Crystar.
The
and,
Crystal Warrior.
Has a little crystal adventure. I think this is kind of on par with that.
Yeah, I think it's a little better, personally.
Okay.
Like, I think it's very on par with Marauders 20 Wind Riders.
Yes, absolutely. Something that's a little nostalgic.
We are in the right spot here.
Yes, I would agree. I don't think this is as good as X-Men Volume 2, 20 to 23, the canon stuff. Even though that's completely nonsensical, it's still kind of classic to me.
I would say this is better, though, than Hunt for Xavier or X-Force Old Ghosts.
I would, too. So that would make it our new 377?
Yeah, that Marauders issue is probably better than these. Now that I say it out loud, it's like right there, but it is better.
Yeah, I think so
does
too.
A very similar thing, though.
It really does. And if this was something you ignored, similar to when we talked about that X-23 series, like this might be worth going back and checking out if you skip.
You're not going to be mad about reading these 12 issues. The art is great. I actually think in the second half, there's some really weird, fun stuff with a couple of characters that Claremont creates called Rico and Ziggy that are fun X-Men kids that I wish Rico would get. He's a Scorpion boy.
Yeah, he's introduced here. He's crawling along the ceiling. He's fun.
Yeah, Nightcrawler's just like, well, that kid's weird. What a weirdo. Love it. Listen,
great.
The fact that there's a Scorpion boy who really wants to be an X-Man, I like that a lot. I think Todd Knock does some great stuff. There's a Nightcrawler bounces back with a romance with Bloody Bess. Do you remember Bloody Bess, the pirate?
Yes.
She's good here, though.
That's great.
Oddly enough, she's kind of great here. Chris Claremont, write more like this. Like, come on, bud. Chris, I don't actually want to read your weird Gambit series. I don't. I'm absolutely. Are you really?
Just because, out of sheer curiosity, I'm like, what is going to happen? This man has spent so much time vocally bashing this era. Like, what is he going to do with Gambit and Kid Storm in 2022 with Will Sportaccio doing art? This is going to be either a delight.
Just doing the covers, my dude. Wills is just doing the covers.
Oh, who's doing? I forget that. Who's doing the interiors? It's it doesn't matter. It's going to be an interesting thing. Is it just
hold on. You just heard Adam, the resident artist on this podcast, saying, "Oh, the artist doesn't matter."
I didn't say that.
Okay,
I did say that.
Who's doing it? It doesn't matter. Let's roll back the tape there for a second, folks. Let's see what Adam really said.
Man, it's just me and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Just
hashtag art cred, buddy. Hashtag art cred. I don't know why you have something against artists, Adam. But you know who doesn't have anything against artists?
Who?
Reagan, who is nothing like her namesake.
That's true. Probably thinks about art a lot more than I ever do.
Probably very thoughtful in her discussions about art. And if you want to be like Reagan, who is nothing like her namesake, you can go on over to patreon.com/comicsxf, toss a couple of coins into our coffers. And you know what? As penance, we'll talk about weird X-Men stories. It's just, we've been doing this show for almost 5 years now. It'll be 5 in July, I think.
That's wild. So cool. It is
wild. So if you think about it, folks, to fill out 3 stories a week, we got to find some weird ones all the time.
That is true. And the more you can recommend them to us, the better. Please. Man, the artist for this Gambit series is Sid Kodian, and I'm just looking at Sid's stuff here, and it's pretty freaking awesome.
It's weird.
Like, they did not just get anybody to do this. This looks really good.
It's not the pick I would have done for a set in 1990 Storm and Gambit story, but hey,
could be cool.
It could be great. We will see. I've been sadly disappointed with friend of the show Larry Hama's Wolverine patch book.
Sorry,
but listen. What is the Hama Wolverine experience if not going through books that absolutely rule, followed by some of the most dreadful stuff you've ever read?
It's page by page, my friend.
Folks, I've been a vocal fan. of Larry Hama's Wolverine, I am willing to say about 50% of it is trash garbage. So I'm okay if he's like, here's these interesting things where Sabretooth and Birdie show up in Matterport, and you're like, okay, let's go, Larry. And then it's like, and here's this weird patch miniseries about like the Viet Cong, and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying on this one, dude. Feels like you're just winging it. Oh man,
always.
Love me some Lethal Larry Hama.
Me too.
Adam, what do you got going on?
Folks, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. And what are we talking about next week, Zach?
Next week, we're getting into the Legion of it all. You remember how we haven't talked about Legion as a character? It was episode 99. Adam.
Wow. Okay.
It was episode 99 because then remember we got sucked into an alternate universe and had to
Well, he's returning with a force next week, so could be cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm excited. There's a couple of stories in here that I actually haven't revisited in quite some time, so I'm very excited to see where they end up. But until then, folks, this has been Battle of the Atom, and we hope you survive the experience.
Get it!